It's been nearly a year since I last provided an update on both my Trading 2 and 2 Invest and Stocks ISA accounts, so I thought it was high time that I brought things up to date. And a lot has changed since then, which I will discuss today. I still don't own any specific stocks in my Trading 2 and 2 accounts, nor do I intend to. And I just like to keep things simple by investing in ETFs. Consistently across my accounts, I've tended to follow a 60-40 equity bond fund allocation. This was primarily so that the bond side of things could provide stability and reduce price movement should markets become volatile. And they have been volatile over the last year or so, but my accounts have remained relatively stable, so this strategy seems to have worked. This is because the price of bond funds often moves in opposite directions to equities in similar market conditions. For instance, when markets are volatile and share prices are moving down, investors often seek more stable assets such as bonds as a safe haven to park their cash in. The higher demand for bonds then pushes bond prices higher and therefore smooths out losses that you could be experiencing if holding equities. They are less risky and therefore come with lower but more consistent returns, but bonds themselves are not all plain sailing and do come with their own risks. I'll explain in a minute about how I've tried to reduce some of these common risks over the past year by increasing my exposure to different types of bond funds. In the past year, I've also considered my personal circumstances and how much stability I actually require from bonds, and I've started to rethink my strategy somewhat. Overall, when I look at the long-term potential performance of bond funds, I'm not that particularly stimulated. And although I understand the reason for being in my portfolio and what I was trying to achieve initially, I keep questioning why I include them, and I've thought long and hard about whether to just sell all or some of them. That said, if I didn't have a guaranteed income stream in the form of a defined benefit workplace pension, where I might then have more of a need for the price stability that at least 40% allocation of bonds would potentially bring, given that I'm semi-retired, price volatility could then mean me having to sell assets to fund retirement at a loss when they are lower in value. In those circumstances, bond funds could then prop up my portfolio's value and ensure that I don't suffer from sequencing of returns risk. This is a risk of your portfolio becoming depleted early on in retirement due to having to sell more assets than normal during market lows to achieve the same financial objectives. And with your portfolio never then being able to recover from this earlier, larger than usual sale of shares. This is a real risk for those near to or just in retirement if having to rely on the defined contribution pension pot to fund this future. The graph, which depicts an equity fund and a bond fund, shows how stable bonds are in comparison and how they can help to provide price stability. As my defined benefit pension guarantees an income and mitigates against me having to do this, I felt it was time that I reduced bond allocations in exchange for another fund that I also consider having certain defensive qualities, although some of you might disagree. As already briefly explained, my circumstances will be different to yours, and I'm not saying that you should try to copy what I'm doing. This is a financial education video and should not be construed to be financial advice. So to quickly recap on what funds I had in my portfolio, the biggest exposure on my main fund was a Developed World ETF that excluded emerging markets in a Vanguard FTSE Developed World UCITS ETF and about 55% across both stocks accounts, and this has a ticker of VHVG. I've explained this before, but will remind viewers of why I exclude emerging markets in my main global ETF. Firstly, because the OCF is much cheaper at 0.1% with a developed world only ETF, rather than the 0.19% if I were to choose a Vanguard FTSE All World ETF with a ticker of VWRP, for instance, which then includes emerging markets. I know there are cheaper non-Vanguard All World ETFs out there, and I also hear that Vanguard might be reducing the OCF on VWRP to make it more competitive. So this is becoming more of a moot point. But by investing separately in an emerging market ETF, I can also control percentage exposure and reduce it from the roughly 9-10% that it occupies in VWRP and other global ETFs to more conservative levels that suit me better. So the second ETF in my portfolio is the Vanguard FTSE Emerging Markets UCITS ETF with a ticker of VFEG, with an average exposure of about 5% across both my accounts. I could sell these all and go out and buy a cheaper all-world ETF, such as the State Street Spider MSCI All Country World UCITS ETF, comes with a ticker of ACWI, which has a really competitive OCF of 0.12%. And I already invest in this ETF in my Invest Engine accounts. But to do this would have little benefit, nor be a very efficient way of investing. I think I've already chopped and changed enough in this portfolio, and I don't want to keep eating away at my returns through buying and selling costs from unnecessarily churning investments. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, as they say. And that was the equity side of things, and the remaining 40% was a mix of global aggregate bonds and shorter dated UK Gilts. The third ETF was the Vanguard Global Aggregate Bond ETF with a ticker of VAGS with 20% exposure, and then the fourth is the iShares UK Gilts 0 to 5 year ETF ticker IGL5 with the remaining 20%. Last year, I reduced my holdings in the Vanguard Global Bond Fund from its initial 40% and added the iShares Fund for defensive reasons. And my more defensive strategy emanates from the increased risks that included longer duration bonds or bond funds of longer aggregate duration. And the two risks linked to duration with bonds are inflation risk and interest rate risk. If inflation rises, then the value of longer duration bonds reduces over time, just like the purchasing power of a pound coin as prices rise and the cost of living becomes more expensive. Therefore, a fund like the Vanguard Global Aggregate Bond Fund, which tracks the Bloomberg Global Aggregate Bond Index, that contains good quality global bonds of varying durations from both emerging markets and developed worlds, but comes with an aggregate duration of about 6 to 6.5 years, would be more susceptible to inflationary conditions. The longer dated bonds in this fund would also be negatively influenced by sudden rises in interest rates. A rise in interest rates often coincides with inflation rises, as governments set them higher in an attempt to cool down an overheating economy whose demand is causing prices to rise. Where interest rates rise, new bond funds then come with higher coupons or interest payments. These higher coupons are much more attractive to investors than the older, lower rate, less sought after bonds already in circulation and contained within the bond fund. These older bonds will then have to reduce in value to provide investors with an overall acceptable yield. And this reduction in value brings down the value of the fund as a whole. In 2022, a sudden rise in inflation and interest rates caused stocks to plummet, but instead of acting as a buffer against this, the price of bonds also moved in the same direction, creating carnage in the equity bond portfolios. So by me adding a bond ETF which contains UK Gilts of between 0 to 5 years in duration, but with an overall average duration of about 3 years, I hedged against similar circumstances happening in the future. So reducing the overall aggregate duration across both funds combined didn't make my bond allocation any more stimulating, but has mitigated the adverse effect that inflation and interest rates could cause. I thought that if I were to continue to rely on bonds as a defence tool in my portfolio, which would be my plan at that stage, then reducing these risks would be worth the slightly lower returns I would get for the increased stability. And I've accepted that bonds come with the lower returns in any case, as the bond funds were not there for that reason, but more for stability. The engine room for growth and returns in my portfolio was the remaining 60% exposure to equities. So that was my portfolio across investing and stocks accounts up until recently. So what has changed? Well, as you've probably guessed, I've reduced my allocation to bond funds, which now sits at about 25% overall, about 12.5% for each fund, keeping the shorter aggregate duration. So my portfolio is now 75%, 25% equity bond allocation. And the 15% part of my portfolio that was once occupied by bonds is now occupied by the new ETF I'm invested in, which is a specialist global dividend ETF you might have heard of called the Vanguard FTSE World High Dividend Yield UCITS ETF, which comes with the ticker of VHYG. This does come with a slightly higher OCF of 0.29%, but this is only on 50% of my portfolio, with an OCF charge across all 5 ETFs being 0.13%. As Trading 212 do not charge any custody fees for me to hold my investments with them, the total cost of me investing on their platform with my pile of investments is an extremely low 0.13%. Some friends of mine use other investment platforms or have workplace pensions that are held with other companies, and the fees are high, with them paying as much as 2% in some cases. Trust me, fees will potentially seriously reduce your final sum and could be a factor in you not reaching your financial goals. The longer you invest for, the more that those fees could eat into your return, so please keep your investing costs as low as you can. Just like the other 4 funds in this pie, I've chosen the accumulation version for this new one. This might seem counterintuitive, being that its speciality is high dividend stocks designed to pay out high dividends. But choosing the accumulation version on this and the other ETFs in my portfolio means I don't have to worry about what to do with any dividend payments, as they will automatically get reinvested back into the fund for me. I didn't choose this dividend fund because I wanted to rely on the dividend income stream provided to me at this time. But this could change in the future if I want to add to the income that my defined benefit pension provides. For now, I just want to continue to grow my assets and use any dividends to add to it to help compound this growth. So why did I choose exposure to a dividend ETF at the expense of bond allocation? One word, diversity. In losing some diversity through my original 60-40 mix across asset classes, I've now increased diversity across the equity 75% of my pie. Combining a high yield dividend fund with the global equity funds can increase diversification. Not only does it diversify your style exposure in value versus total market, it also helps you to diversify geographic coverage, as both funds have different regional allocations. Looking at the holdings of each fund side by side illustrates this further. The top 10 companies are different. There's reduced exposure to the US and VHYG. The top 10 companies have a much smaller weighting and less influence within the fund, and VHYG also helps diversify the sectors, with less emphasis on growth sectors such as technology, and more on value sectors such as financials, energy, utilities and consumer staples. These value sectors will consist of good quality companies that have done their growing and are now rewarding shareholders with higher dividends from the profits. This combination means that even with lower exposure to bonds and therefore potentially reduced price stability, the equity side of my portfolio has become more balanced and less concentrated on one style of company, sector, region, and those magnificent 7 stocks. More and more economists warn of trouble brewing over the horizon regarding technology stocks, as the massive companies such as Google, Microsoft and Apple invest large amounts of money to focus increasingly in AI. Some say that this expense is not sustainable and there could be a technology market correction around the corner. And when growth stocks such as those from the tech sector lag, dividend value stocks often behave differently. I'm not the first investor to take this path. People often combine the high yield dividend fund with a global equity fund to smooth out performance between growth cycles and value cycles, to increase income stability with dividends while creating broader market exposure, to reduce reliance on US tech dominance, to add defensive sectors such as utility and staples, and add a behavioural benefit. Dividends feel tangible and can help some investors stay invested. Of course, there are trade-offs to be aware of, such as sector tilts. Dividend funds underweight tech, so long-term growth may be lower. Although looking at 1-year and 5-year performance comparisons between VHVG and VHYG provides an argument against this. Overlap, as you could end up holding some of the same companies twice, thus increasing concentration in those companies. Value bias. Dividend screens favour mature companies, not fast-growing ones. And cost. Dividend funds often come with slightly higher OCFs. The bottom line is that by combining them, you can improve diversification by mixing growth and value styles, balancing your exposure across different types of global companies, sectors and regions. But a high dividend yield equity fund cannot replace bonds. It can play a similar stabilising role to a smaller extent, just not in the same way 40% bond allocation does in a classic 60-40 portfolio. For now, this smaller extent, with the potential for higher returns overall, is something that better suits my individual circumstances. Remember that it might not suit yours, so do your research. So now that we have covered this new fund, let's look at the overall performance of my accounts over the last year, with there being a total gains of over 14%, and with the engine for this growth coming from the Vanguard Developed World ETF VHVG. You can see that the new addition to my portfolio started off well, with returns already up 1.5% since my first investment about a month back. It is early days though. My Invest account is showing a recent rate of return of over 40% since I opened it back in the summer of 2023, so things are going well at the moment. I just hope that a Strait of Hormuz moment doesn't scupper this. Without wishing to be a doomster, what is currently happening in the Middle East, where the flow of oil is being prevented and oil prices are rising, will very likely have a knock-on effect on the global cost of living should the situation continue. This could cause inflationary conditions. It is not something that investors should hope for. Well, that is it for this Trading 212 portfolio update, and I hope it was education as well as being interesting for you. Please let me know in the comments if there are any other subjects that you would like me to include in these updates as we move forward. And also tell me what you think about my strategy, what your strategy is, and whether you like bonds, hate bonds, or have a preference for something else. Thanks once again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.